Hello, Zoom. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I can hear you.
Excellent, thank you. And are you seeing our camera feed?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. How about the screen share?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, we're winning this time. Thanks, guys.
Okay, I have 7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If someone at Zoom land would let us know if you can hear me, I'd appreciate it.
I can hear you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Roll call, we have full board present. And now if you join me in Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, moving on to item 2, I believe we have an addition to our agenda. Are you proposing a 6, Edward?
Yes, please.
Okay, addition to the agenda will be resolution 2024-03, local disaster emergency declaration. If there's no other questions, comments, or additions, deletions, I'd entertain a motion on the agenda.
I move that we approve the amended agenda.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the amended agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move on to our reports. We'll start with trustees. And we'll go this direction. None?
None.
The report I would like to give is a really special thank you to Dusty and Kelly. as y'all are well aware, we've probably had roughly 3 feet of snow in our area. And some people are saying more. And they pretty much worked in shifts, pretty much 24-hour days, splitting the shift, and probably put in close to 100 hours from Wednesday night until Saturday. And by Saturday, all of our roads were at least passable. And I don't think anyone else in our area can make that claim. And so I would like to say a special thank you to Dusty and Kelly.
Here, here.
Okay, moving on to staff reports.
The marshal is currently out participating in a CPW, that's Colorado Parks and Wildlife bear discussion that they have put together, but he has put together a written report for you here that's in your packet. And if you have any questions for him, I can certainly relay them to him and get answers for you regarding that. We did not include a Public Works report this meeting. I think it's pretty evident that they are pretty busy. They are working on some additional equipment repairs. Did want to thank the citizens of Green Mountain Falls for their patience while we got to where we are. And we did have a little bit of an issue with one of the hydraulic arms on one of our plows. So there was a little bit of a lull in service, but we're able to get a ton done, and really thankful to them for that. In addition to that, what do we got up next in our packet? Ooh, I'm gonna turn it over to Bo and I'll jump back in a minute.
Do you want to mention the issue with the dump truck?
We are evaluating our dump truck right now. We do have a pretty old dump truck. They took it in to do some repairs and replace the clutch, are struggling to find parts for it. So right now we're kind of looking at, is it worth it to try and limp it along right now and get the last little bit of miles out of it? Or is there an opportunity to sell it while it's still got some miles and useful to somebody else, and look for something else? Kelly has been researching them, and there are several on the market that are used. And I can tell you, you can buy a dump truck for cheaper than you can buy a truck. So we'll bring a proposal to you if we get to that point later.
Thank you.
I have a first quarter balance sheet. Just to point out, this isn't really a date range. It's a snapshot comparison. So this is the first day of the year, first day of the quarter. And here's where we stood on March 1st. So that might help navigate that. I'm happy to talk about it if there's any questions. We did also send out kind of a draft PowerPoint, and would love any feedback either, here or via email about that if I'm on the right track with that. And I'd like to include that in the future. So
Let's go ahead and take a look at that if you wouldn't mind.
sure, yeah.
Quick. We do have quite a bit on the agenda, so I'm going to breeze through it and then just kind of let you know how we were thinking about reporting some of these financials in a little bit different way than you've seen before. And then what our goal is to take feedback from you. Of course, we do have several candidates for trustee positions that'll be taking office next month. Would love to hear their feedback and any feedback from the citizens that they might have on what additional information they would like to have to help to understand the town's financial position and how our finances work. But this is a little bit of a snapshot, and we can certainly amend it to make it even more valuable to you all. Oh. Just hit X. Can you click behind it? Nope. Well, we're having a hard time pulling it up. It's gonna make us sign in. I think you can sign in under your clerk account.
You might just want to describe it.
Yeah, so, a couple of things that I did want to touch on there, revenues, because they are, coming in a quarter behind. Those will be reported in arrears. So for this first quarter report that we'll bring out next month, we'll be reporting quarter one revenues in quarter two, just because of how those taxes, are coming into the town. There are tax revenues that include sales tax, tobacco tax, property tax, occupancy, highway user tax funds, auto use, etc. And they are recorded as they are received, but hard to report it because it is oftentimes a month or a quarter in arrears. Bo would like to create a revenue calendar, which documents when revenues are received to help better forecast some future income. And so while you won't see that revenue for quarter four, it'll come in the next year. We
It's
did,
gonna be in pie chart, bar chart type
Yeah,
form.
definitely. So
Basically with just expenses versus
Mhm.
where we are in budget.
What we'd like to do is give a departmental overview, and this is in bar chart form, and it kind of shows where we're at by department of what we've expended in each quarter. And then what we had budgeted. So the first chart that you have in that report is a departmental overview, and it compares all departments. And then we break it out by department. There's different things that occur in each of the departments that kind of say when the revenues are expended. Administration is pretty well to the quarter. And that one's been pretty consistent. Your elected officials department, we have a couple of items that we budget in there for you all each year. That includes your donations to other organizations, such as your agreement for trail maintenance, as well as some ability to attend professional conferences such as CML. So that one is already 74% expended because we have made that contribution to that organization already. The next one up on there.
And did you say you sent those out to the trustees?
Yeah, they went out as an attachment with the notice for that the packet was ready for you, I
Okay.
believe on Thursday, it might have been Thursday.
Okay. Okay, Becky, I think that's probably adequate until I actually see
Yeah.
the charts and graphs.
Yeah, it's
themselves.
not fun this way. So you do have that ahead in your emails if you would like to see it, or if any of the public would like to see it and have a little bit more explanation, we're happy to go over it.
Okay.
Outside of that, you do have in your packet a written report from me. And I'm not going to go over that in detail. Happy to entertain questions if you have any, but there are a couple of other things that have popped up since the packet was published. First of all, the Colorado Avalanche Info Center was able to send up a couple of representatives yesterday afternoon. I'm not sure if you had seen the news that had come out. There was a small avalanche recorded in Cascade over the weekend. It was caught on somebody's ring cam on their door. So because of that, Teller County Office of Emergency Management had them in the area. That and another issue that they had down in southern Teller County. They were in the area, they popped in and did a little bit of an assessment. What they found was not that we have the steep enough slope or grade on most of our streets to have that momentum. But what they did notice is that there's a ton of snow piled up on everybody's roofs. And that really does have the opportunity to come down and hurt somebody on their property. So a little bit of a public service announcement here to clean off your roof with a buddy.
Don't climb on your roof,
And don't
please.
climb on the roof. Yeah, and well, and just to be aware of that snow, and it is heavy. There is also upcoming the Colorado Municipal League Conference. This is held June 18th through 21st in Loveland this year. You do have some budget for anybody that is continuing on the board or newcomers post-election. I would like to kind of get an idea of who would like to attend that this year and represent the town, network, learn, as early bird registration will be ending soon. In addition to that, next Thursday, March 28th, Pikes Peak Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments will be hosting their first regional assembly. That is an open invitation to any current elected officials, and they do have a registration deadline of this Friday. So if you're interested in attending that one, it's down in Colorado Springs, only lasts about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And it should be good. So please let me know if you have interest there.
And being your PPACG representative, I will not be able to attend that one. I've got family coming in, so. Anyone, any of the other trustees are more than welcome to go.
Like, that's what I've got for you.
Okay, if there's no other reports, we'll move on to our first public comment section, item number 4, and this is for items that are not on the agenda. We will be opening up a public hearing on the conditional use permit. So if there's anyone that would, do we have anyone signed up? Anyone in the public?
I don't have anyone signed up already, and I'm not seeing anything coming in from Zoom. Is there anyone here in the room who would like to make public comment?
Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 5. It is 7:15. We will open the public hearing on the conditional use permit at 10325 West Highway 24. And we begin with generally staff presentation, and then we allow the applicant to get up and speak, and then we allow the public to get up and speak after that.
Thank you, Mayor and board members. My name is Ben Thurston. I'm the planning director for Baseline Engineering, and we are contracted with the town to provide planning services. So I'm going to share my screen if Bo will let me.
Should be
There.
good to go. Give it a try.
Yep, it's working. Hold on just a second here. All right, can you see that yet?
No, give me one sec. We can see it here in the room. Thank you.
All right. So we are here tonight for the Green Mountain Falls Horse Wellness Meadow conditional use permit. This was just presented to the Planning Commission a little earlier this evening, and I'll go over what their recommendation was toward the end of the presentation. The request is for approval of a conditional use permit to develop a horse wellness facility classified as an animal shelter in the Green Mountain Falls Land Use Code at 10325 West Highway 24. The applicant is Jesse Stroop. The property owner is Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation, LLC. We've already talked about the address. One of the components of this application, in addition to the conditional use permit, is a major site plan, and that was reviewed and approved with conditions by the Planning Commission on March 12th, 2024. And the planning commission, according to the land use code, is the decision-making authority for a major site plan. The existing zoning is open space. And we've already talked about the proposed land use. This is the couple of maps showing the location of the property. And I'm sure you all know where it is. The property on the right, the property is outlined in red, and roughly speaking, the area where the horse facility would be is at that north end. It's a relatively smaller section of the overall property. Here's a street view from Highway 24 at the existing access point, and this is that north end of the property where the use would be developed. So looking at the land use review, this use is considered an animal shelter as defined in the code, which is a facility that is operated for the purpose of providing for and promoting the welfare, protection, and humane treatment of animals, that is used to shelter at least 10 animals in a year, and that is operated by a government entity, humane society, animal welfare society, animal rescue group, or other nonprofit group. Currently in the code, an animal shelter is not a permitted or conditional use within the open space zone district. And so there's really two actions remaining that need to happen. One of which is the conditional use permit that you're considering tonight. The other one that will come at a later date is to amend the land use code to actually add animal shelter as a conditional use in the open space zone district. So my apologies, we're basically going in reverse order on this and just sort of conditioning these approvals along the way to get us to the finish line. Reviewing the comprehensive plan, we find that the proposed land use is consistent with goal 3.4.1, policy A, to support development that enhances a sense of community and is compatible with surrounding land uses, the natural environment, and the community's expectations. And policy C, to encourage development along Highway 24 that is appropriately scaled and is in keeping with the uses desired by Green Mountain Falls residents. Public notice for this hearing tonight was provided in accordance with section 12-52H of the code. And these are our findings on the approval criteria. So this first page is the general approval criteria. This is what applies to all applications. And I'll just walk through these. The first one, that it complies with applicable requirements, including this land use code, town, state, and federal law. And we find that it does with the recommended conditions and primarily with making sure that the code is amended properly to establish this as a conditional use in open space. B, it's consistent with any applicable adopted town plans, the most important of which is the comprehensive plan, and that was outlined, that we find that in the affirmative. That it promotes the public health, safety, and general welfare, we find that in the affirmative as well. It promotes the health of horses, but also provides for the general welfare of the community, for anyone who visits the facility to connect with animals, art, and the natural environment. D, that it minimizes or mitigates adverse impacts associated with the application. And I'll just kind of summarize D, E, and F, which is the first one is just a general mitigation of adverse impacts. E is that it won't have particular significant adverse impacts on the natural environment. And then F is that it won't have significant adverse impacts on other property in the vicinity of the subject property. And we find all of those in the affirmative. We don't find any substantial adverse impacts associated with the proposed facility. And if there is any future nuisance that would arise, that can be addressed through the application of Chapter 6, Health, Sanitation, and Animals in the Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code. And then this page covers there's additional criteria for certain application types, and conditional use permit is one of those. And so there's 4 additional criteria to be applied here. A, that it's consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning district in which it's located. We find that to be true. Open space district, as defined in the code, is to preserve a regional greenbelt of open space land, protect and restore the natural environment, and provide opportunities for public recreational enjoyment and education. And we find that the proposed horse wellness facility will do all those things. B, be generally consistent with any related use-specific standards. There are a handful of uses in the code that have specific use standards tied to them. So we find this to be not applicable because there are no use-specific standards in the code for an animal shelter. C, that it's compatible with adjacent uses in terms of scale, site design, operating characteristics. And we find that it will be compatible. And again, any future nuisances can be addressed through the enforcement of the code. And then D, provide adequate assurances of continuing maintenance. There's nothing in the application that specifies maintenance, but I'm sure the applicant would be willing to speak to and provide you assurance of ongoing maintenance of the property, and any future maintenance issues could also be addressed through the enforcement of the code. And then finally, our recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve with conditions a conditional use permit for the development of a horse wellness facility at 10325 West Highway 24. And it's here that I'll note that I guess it was about 45 minutes ago that the Planning Commission made a recommendation to the board to approve with the conditions outlined here on this slide, and they're also in your staff report. And those conditions are: the proposed animal shelter use must be established in the Green Mountain Falls Land Use Code as a conditional use in the open space district. And then 2, that the applicant shall address referral comments from the town engineer regarding grading, drainage, and erosion control prior to the issuance of any grading or building permits for the development of this use. And that concludes my presentation. I have a slide asking for questions, but I'm sure the mayor will want to get public comment before getting to any questions. Thank you.
Well, first I'll ask the trustees if there's any questions. Okay, with that, we'll move to the applicant and let them provide a statement for us, and just make sure your blue light's on the microphone.
Jesse Stroop, 10770 Florence Avenue. Just a reminder that we started talking about bringing horses to Green Mountain Falls in 2018 when we began the annexation process to bring that acreage into Green Mountain Falls. Looking at all of you, I know that this project has been supported since then, and so I appreciate the ongoing support. As it relates to the conditions, our engineer is responding to the referrals made by Kiowa. And I guess just a question of how long does it take for this action of the second recommendation to be official? And does the permit pending that approval?
So the process moving forward next will be that if approved, we'll need to amend the land use code. That'll require a public hearing that is posted in the paper 15 days prior to the hearing date. So that's really what we're working towards, is being able to make sure that we've got public hearing, an opportunity for the Planning Commission to hear that and review it prior to the Board of Trustees hearing it. So we do have a draft of that ordinance ready for publication and for a review should it be approved tonight. And we will work with the Planning Commission to see if they're able to have a meeting that aligns with prior to the Board of Trustees meeting. And I anticipate that this will be on the Board of Trustees agenda on the April the 16th meeting.
With respect to there's still activity going on with Kiowa. I'm assuming that if we approve it conditionally based upon that item 2, the resolution of the comments that staff will determine, staff and the applicant will be determining that.
Mm-hmm.
And once they give a thumbs up, then the only thing is the ordinance.
Right. So I think that the question here ends up being in discussing with the applicant, he's been staging materials, other places while he is not, Pikes Peak Regional Building Department will not issue a building permit prior to, the land use code being in process or that update occurring. Does the Board of Trustees have any issues with him staging materials and beginning some site prep prior to the building permit being issued?
I do not. Yeah. But I'm not hearing any, so I'm assuming, I'm assuming
I
no.
don't see an issue.
I mean, this has been in work since like I said, 2018.
And a quick question for Ben, just because planning is not my purview. Is there any activities that the applicant should not begin prior to the issuance of a building permit?
I mean, there really shouldn't be any dirt moved, any kind of grading activity done. I mean, once you expose that, and then you have the chance of erosion occurring. So that's what we would want to make sure that isn't done. I will note that in terms of the use, in terms of actually, I don't know when you plan to have horses on the property, but in terms of having horses on the property, that could happen anytime once the use gets established. It's just the improvements that are causing the concern with drainage issues and erosion control.
What about fencing?
Yeah, I think
All of it's already up?
I think a fence could be put up. The main issue with grading and erosion control are sort of two things: land disturbance, and there's not a lot of disturbance associated with putting up a fence, and then and then impervious area, and you're not really introducing impervious area with a fence. So I think a fence could be put up.
I'll note
Applicant,
that,
do you have
yes,
any-
the fence has been put up. And I would never move dirt, do anything illegal that I don't have a permit for, and I wouldn't ask you for that permission. I'm gonna lodge a little complaint that we've been talking about this since 2018, and we've had staff turnover, and we've had changes at the planning commission, and we've adopted a new land use code. So I understand that some things have to be done in reverse to make this happen. Major site plan was applied for December the 7th, and some of these things probably could have happened congruently instead of one step at a time. So I'll just say that's a complaint and answer any other questions that you have.
Trustees, any other questions? Hearing none, we'll now move to thank you, Jesse. We'll move to the public hearing portion. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to make a comment? Yeah, go ahead. Just make sure your blue light's on and
Brandy Morales, 6970 Howard Street. I just commented during the planning commission, so apologies for those of you that were here. But I think this is a wonderful idea. It's going to get our town back to its roots of having horses here. And it's a very good purpose. And it's also going to bring the community together. I already know there's quite a few of us that are rearing to volunteer. And I think it's wonderful. So thank you.
about on Zoom.
Seeing anything coming in from Zoom?
And on Zoom.
Okay, with that, I have 7:31 and we will close the public hearing portion. And now we move on to our business items. Number 6A is the conditional use permit itself. Do we need to have any further discussion?
You can if you so choose.
Based on my affiliation with Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation and Greenbox, I'll recuse myself from the vote.
Understood. If there's no other discussion by the board, I would entertain a motion on the conditional use permit.
I move that we approve the conditional use permit.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve the conditional use permit. I'm assuming with the conditions listed. Correct, Catherine? With the conditions
With the conditions.
in the second.
And a second on that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. We approve the conditional use permit with the conditions listed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And we had one recusal. And I would like to make a statement. Hats off to the applicant. This was our first real application for major site plan and zoning through our new land use code. It was a steep learning curve, obviously. I would have hoped that it, with as much time as we've had and with as many hands that have actually touched the new land use code, that would have gone a little bit more smoother without having to retouch the land use code a couple times. But again, hats off to the applicant for your patience and understanding with us. And with that, we'll move on to item 6B, the National Library Week proclamation. And do we have anyone?
I believe we have somebody from the library here.
Okay. Yeah, just make sure your blue light on the microphone is on and be sure to let us know your name.
Hi, everyone. My name's Taryn Malala. I am the branch manager of the Ute Pass Library. We just wanted to thank you for continuing to support us. We love serving the community and we love growing with the families here in Green Mountain Falls and Cascade. So thank you for once again reading our proclamation.
And with that, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. There's a lot of whereases, so bear with me. I'll try to not to stumble around too much. National Library Week 2024 proclamation for all readings except for El Paso County Board of Commissioners and Fountain City Council. Whereas today's libraries are more about what they can do with and for their communities and not just about what they have on the shelves. They provide the opportunity for everyone to pursue their passions and engage in lifelong learning by cultivating spaces for belonging, personal growth, and strong communities. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted institutions, often the heart of their cities, towns, schools, and academic campuses. Whereas libraries play a critical role in economic vitality of communities by providing internet and technology access, literacy skills, and support for job seekers, small business, and entrepreneurs. Whereas we recognize librarians as information professionals who provide expertise, services, and guidance for patrons who access credible sources and material, making their own informed decisions about the world today. Whereas libraries provide access to and display a wide range of information and ideas for all. Whereas libraries are accessible places that promote a sense of local connection, advancing understanding, civic engagement, and shared community goals. Whereas the continued effort to build strong communities, Pikes Peak Library District serves a population of nearly 740,000 people via 16 facilities, mobile library services, and a large online hub of resources. In 2023, residents accessed 6.8 million electronic and physical materials from PPLD that connected El Paso County residents with information and resources to enhance their quality of life. Whereas we celebrate, a lot of whereases. Whereas we celebrate April 9th as Library Workers Day to recognize the immeasurable contributions made by library workers. April 10th is National Outreach Day, showing library services are not limited to their physical location. And April 11th as Take Action for Libraries Day, encouraging community support for libraries. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the town of Green Mountain Falls, proclaim National Library Week, April 7th through 13th, 2024 in Green Mountain Falls. During this week, Pikes Peak Library District, PPLD, invites all residents to visit their local library and to join them at any of the 8 open houses that will take place the week of April 7th through 13th throughout the library district. Because of you, libraries transform lives and communities. And now that I've caught my breath a little bit, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve National Library Week 2024. I didn't have as much to read.
Second.
It's been moved to say that we approve the proclamation for National Library Week of 2024. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item of business is item 6C, Child Abuse Prevention Proclamation. And we have a Shannon Arrington with us with the Department of Human Services that would like to brief us. And if you would, I'd let you read the next one. Yeah, make sure the blue light's on.
I
Yep.
will absolutely read it for you. Hi, all. My name is Shannon Arrington. I'm a Child, Youth, and Family Services Manager with El Paso Department of Human Services. That in and of itself is a lot to say, but I'm very excited to be here tonight. I'm not a Green Mountain Falls resident, but I am a Cascade resident. So I very much appreciate this and appreciate being here. So I will read the proclamation recognizing Child Abuse Prevention Month. So bear with me. Whereas finding solutions for child abuse and neglect, a serious problem affecting every segment in our community, requires input and action from everybody because of the well-being of our children. Today, we shape the future of Colorado and our community. And whereas child trauma can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse and neglect. And whereas all parents and caregivers need support sometimes, and supporting all children and families early and far less costly to society and individuals than healing from trauma. And whereas community leaders, policymakers, and elected officials play a unique role in building a community for kids by understanding the programs and policies that support child maltreatment prevention, listening to parents' needs, and examining community planning through its lens to build healthy communities. And whereas effective prevention efforts succeed because of partnerships created among human service agencies, public health, the district attorney's office, school, faith, civic organizations, the medical community, law enforcement, and first responders agencies, the business community, nonprofits, and concerned citizens. And whereas everybody plays a role in preventing child abuse and neglect, helping build thriving communities so that families and children may also thrive. So thank you, trustees, for this opportunity. Obviously, April is about preventing child abuse and neglect. So you guys are all aware, in El Paso County, we are the largest county in 64 counties. Not only with the calls that we receive, but also just our land consumption. And so as of March 1st, 2014, we've had over 4,184 calls that were made to child abuse and neglect hotline in El Paso County. Obviously, not all of these calls warranted us to go out and make contact with families or resulted in a child abuse case. But it is a number, it's a snapshot of the need for what we do. And so really El Paso County focuses on safety, permanency, and well-being for all our children. And we could not do that without the ongoing support of all of you here. And as small as your community is, as well as Cascade, which I know, I'm often flabbergasted by the reports that get called in through with Green Mountain Falls and Cascade, just as a small community. So it happens everywhere, right? Like this is not a big city issue. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
And with that, trustees, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the proclamation recognizing Child Abuse Prevention Month.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the Child Abuse Prevention Proclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 6D as in Delta. Do we have respect on?
We
online
do.
to
We have
go through?
Joe Brisson online to help present this. And Joe, if you'll give us just a moment to pull up your presentation.
All right, you want to drive it from there?
We're happy to, or if you'd like to
No,
screen
go,
share.
it's probably easier on your end.
Okay, perfect. You haven't seen Bo drive.
With all that snow, I trust your drivers. And while Bo is doing that, I'll introduce some of my other teammates here. Retta Habib is with us this evening virtually, and so is Patrick Baldwin. And we've been spending some time in your community, mostly virtual. And it's been very enjoyable. We've learned a great deal about your community, what's going on there. We were brought in as through the state of Colorado, the Office of Information Technology, to take a look at your community and to better understand broadband or internet, if you will, services to your community. We spent about, I don't know, 6+ weeks looking at a number of factors that I'll cover in the presentation here. And we'll tell you what sort of findings we made during that time. Do we have a presentation yet?
They're working it.
Okay.
We got one computer is trying to drive about 6 screens, I think.
Well, we've seen your broadband, so we understand that aspect.
Yeah.
Since the mayor didn't do it, I'll give you fair warning that this is a bit technical, so we'll try to do our best with it and not cause anyone to lose consciousness over the presentation.
Would you like for me to get my laptop and plug it in? Okay.
I can go on this end if you need to.
T-minus 10 seconds and counting. Joe, we'd like to take that back and let you drive.
All right. Let me know when you can see this.
Yes, we can see it. I can see it. I don't know. Don't.
Well, we're still manipulating here. Here it's coming. Okay, now we got it. We're good.
All right. Just a quick intro. I guess I already covered that with what our work was here. And so I'll get right to it. Here's the agenda for this evening. We're going to cover our scope of work, our current state findings, some of these findings summarized, some future possibilities. And then we're going to open up for questions, if you will. First, as I mentioned, with funding from the state and the Governor's Office of Information Technology, we conducted a broadband, and I put internet services because I think when I say broadband, a lot of people don't really understand what the term broadband means. So you're really talking about your internet that's at your home and at your businesses in the community. We conducted a feasibility study and a preliminary design for Green Mountain Falls, and we're also asked to look at the unincorporated areas adjacent to Green Mountain Falls to understand that if services were improved to the town, could that be extended also to the adjacent communities? To better understand the current state of broadband in the community, Respect used the FCC and OIT maps, which are some fun acronyms. You know FCC, I suspect. We met with the mayor's office. We collected performance data from your residents. So a number of residents volunteered to record their speeds at home with their internet performance, and we captured that and used that in our analysis. And we also met with some of the internet service providers that are either currently or considering offering services to the community. Patrick, you want to talk about this?
Sure. Oh, I have a horrible echo. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Temporary. So using data that originated from internet providers that have to submit twice a year to the FCC, their kind of coverage areas using all the locations in the state of Colorado. The Colorado Office of Information Technology, in preparation for administering the BEAD program, has kind of said that any locations that aren't able to access at least one service where you can subscribe to internet that gets you 100 megabits per second download and 20 megabits per second upload is considered unserved. Like that's not good. It doesn't qualify, and it's eligible for subsidized build out. An internet service provider or someone could apply for a grant and get funding to build fiber or some other technology possibly to get you to that level of service. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, there aren't any of those locations in Green Mountain Falls. Every point tracked in the city can at least subscribe to one service where they can get, maybe not all the time, and maybe they don't subscribe to that tier package that gets you to that level, but in theory, at least everyone in town can get that service. The bigger map here, though, is that there are 80,000 of these locations in the state that can't access that fast of an internet, and 20-some thousand of them are in the counties you all are familiar with. And this is just a map showing kind of the relative density of places where they can't get good internet in Teller and El Paso counties. And we included a couple maybe similar communities you might be familiar with to show kind of that, even though your service offerings maybe don't feel great, you're actually pretty relatively well off compared to the area in which you are located. So this is a map kind of showing, there are really three kind of reasonable options depending on how you look at it. Pretty much everyone in town can subscribe to Comcast, Xfinity, and they have varying levels of service pricings. Some places can also subscribe, some homes, businesses. Teller Wi-Fi claims that they can provide that 120 level of service, but they're using kind of an unlicensed spectrum that can be subject to interference. So it actually is not a qualifying service according to the FCC, but your mileage may vary. So we included it. T-Mobile does use licensed spectrum. They heavily advertise this. You've probably seen it advertised. They claim to serve at least the northern part of town. So what we have here are the green parts. Basically, you have three choices. The yellows, you have two choices. And there are a couple points around town. Maybe they're in holes, I'm not sure, where you really Comcast is your only choice. I guess I'm still talking. We've got, some of you probably saw, we tried to push out and have you all test your own home internet if you live in town. The idea was that if you weren't getting the level of service that you subscribe to, that you could actually challenge the provider and say, hey, the service that they claim to provide isn't what they say it is. Maybe my location should be considered eligible for BEAD funding. But it was also just interesting as an academic study. Like, compared to what the providers say, what are people actually experiencing? Because that, that's not part of the FCC data. What we found though was that providers generally are delivering what they claim. And most of the results we got were from subscribers of Comcast around town, and people, if you may have done this study yourself, and thank you, where you entered in your subscription information, your address, and just clicked and let the test run. And so these are bar charts kind of showing, the kind of the median speeds and kind of some outliers. But generally, if you have Comcast, you can expect, we saw some low speeds, kind of outliers there, but generally you're getting between 250 megabits per second download and 500 megabits per second download, which is pretty good, all things considered. We had a smaller number of results for the T-Mobile. A couple people at least subscribed to that around town, and that was providing relatively decent download speeds as well. The Lumen CenturyLink is not, so that's DSL that comes in through your phone line, your phone jack, and that's an antiquated technology, and as expected, the speeds were very, very slow.
Thanks, Patrick. Retta, do you want to speak to what's available in the community?
Yes, sure. Okay, so this is more or less, this is a survey of the different technologies that are available in the town of Green Mountain Fall. And basically you see here the download speed and upload speed. And you see basically there is red bands and green bands and yellow bands. Basically the categories that are used in the broadband is either you are served, that's basically, as Patrick has mentioned, above 100 and 100 download and 20 download and 20 upload, or basically you are between 100 and between 25 to 100 of download speed. And that basically put you in the underserved category, or basically for the upload speed is between 3 and 20. So if you are falling into that category, then basically you are in the underserved category. If your speed is below 25/3, which basically 25 download /3 upload, then basically you are unserved. You are considered unserved. So these are the bands that you see here, the red, green, and yellowish band. The technologies that are used to serve the Green Mountain Fall, first of all, there is no fiber in the town. Okay. The different categories are DSL, basically, as Patrick used, which uses your telephone lines to, it's called digital subscriber lines. It's what it stands for, is basically using that to carry over. I mean, they're overloading that with data. And it is an outdated technology. It uses the copper wire that exists presently. And it has been excluded. Cable, basically, which is used, is piggybacking on the TV cable companies, and Xfinity provides that, and they are claiming from 1200/35. And the rate, basically, the fees basically between 64 to 116 per month. And that's subject to promotion, so you need to watch for that if you are subscribing to them. Unlicensed fixed wireless, as Patrick has mentioned previously, uses unlicensed band. So you are subject to anyone who uses that band, and that creates a lot of noise. So you are not guaranteeing that bandwidth all the time. They are claiming basically 100 download and upload, but that depends purely on where you are situated on the town, and if you have a clear line of sight or you have good reflections on it. The licensed terrestrial fixed wireless, which is basically the mobile, it piggybacks on the mobile network. T-Mobile offers that for $50, and there are some people who are subscribing, and it goes up to 120. Moving from that, we have basically satellite, which is covered basically everywhere. There is the geostationary satellites. These are basically, they fly very high above the ground, and basically it suffers from delay. There is 1 second, at least 1.2 seconds of delay in the round trip. So if you send something, it's gonna basically has to go to satellite and then move back. And because the geostationary is stable but very high up, it takes basically 1.2, and this is the tax for every package that you send or for every package that's sent to you. So geostationary is I mean, has been more or less replaced, or it's still in action, but basically non-geostationary satellite, basically by Starlink, has replaced that, and it has much slower delay and can offer a good download speed. For all satellites, they put a cap on the traffic that you can send or receive. So you need to be careful with that. Any question on this?
Retta, when I look at this, it tells me that this DSL, which is very slow, is $70 a month, but I can get faster service for cheaper elsewhere, it looks like.
Yeah, and then basically this is why it's not really used. I mean, very rarely it's used, but they are pricing everything the same. And that one of the factors of the speed you are getting is how far are you from a concentration point of the DSL. You can be, if you are very close to the public exchange office, basically, then you can get good speed. And the further you go, the slower you get. So,
all right. Thanks for that, Retta.
Welcome.
So some of the findings we can summarize here. All the locations in Green Mountain Falls we mentioned can subscribe to a minimal level of service with download speeds of at least 100 and upload speeds of 20 megabits per second. Be served levels as defined by NTIA on it. Interestingly, but probably not surprising, is while it's available, a number of residents don't actually subscribe to packages that would give them these speeds, but they are available. Also, due to meeting these minimum speeds already, the community is really not eligible for any BEAD, and the BEAD funding is a federal program. They have put out $42 billion in grant funds to the entire country to bring internet to all. And because you already have arguably internet, you wouldn't be eligible for those or most other federal funds at this point. I will talk about what some of your options are, though. None of your locations, as the team mentioned, have access to fiber in the community, which is very unfortunate. And although Comcast rates are in line with other communities in the region, there are limited options available to the citizens, as you saw in Retta's chart there. That it's pretty much, you can do Comcast, you can do T-Mobile, and that's what your choices are. And lastly, I want to talk about some of these future possibilities. We learned during our research that El Paso County has a fiber cable that extends west of I-25 to Woodland Park, passing by Green Mountain Falls. If fiber service is to come to Green Mountain Falls, somehow you have to find a way to tap into that line that's out there on the highway so you can bring these high speeds in. There is capacity, from our understanding, that a lot of that fiber that's out there is actually dark, we learned during the process. Also, Comcast has national plans to upgrade its offerings up to 2 gig download and 200 megabytes upload in the next 1 to 2 years. Can we hold them to that schedule? Hard to say for sure, but that is something they're doing to try to really capture a lot of the market. Also, you'd expect, though, if you're going to subscribe to that level of service, your cost is going to go up. And thirdly, I want to mention Stratus IQ, who we met with. This is an ISP, Internet Service Provider, who's interested in coming into Green Mountain Falls. and to bring fiber to the community. But in order to do so, they require grant funding. And that grant funding is pretty significant. So something for you to consider, but I think if I recall the numbers, it was looking for $1 million to $1.5 million grant to bring that in the community, which is a lot to consider given the size of your community on this. And so with that, I'll open it up to questions if anyone has any.
Okay, trustees, questions?
I do. What's the problem with the fiber that's on 24? Did you say it was dark? What,
It's not
what,
used.
You're not yet
Unused?
connected to it.
yeah, why,
Oh, dark means they didn't turn it on yet. It's just late night.
Roger. So are we tracking why they haven't turned that service on for, I'm assuming that that's for the whole Teller community as well?
It is active in some of the other communities going down the road. It's just, there's no line connection to it from your community. It's not far away.
Yeah, we have to
Okay.
have a provider that would connect into it. And right now, we don't have a provider that connects into it.
Okay.
And that's the 1.2 million that, or 1.5 million.
For the grant.
Yeah.
What do you recommend? How do we tap into this? What provider do we utilize? Comcast, not a huge fan, although I do use them. Is that what we're talking about? We're talking about provide.
So Comcast is one of your options. What you can be doing or considering going forward is, so first off, you should know with $42 billion in BEAD funding, and all those internet service providers are focused on all the communities who are getting huge grant funds to them. So you're not in a great position in the queue because the folks with money talks, right, are going to have the attention for the next 5 years of most of those internet service providers as these monies are doled out. I think your best option is to continue to try to work with folks like Comcast or others to bring fiber service in. This current service you have is of limited life. I hope you're aware of this, that your cable services and such are not considered at this point a long-term solution where fiber is the future. And by bringing in fiber, you can expect to be somewhat future-proof for the next 40 years. So it is important that you find a way and continue conversations with these internet service providers to say, how do we get to this? And I don't know that the 1.5 million is in any way realistic, but that is one of the options that's out there. I would also suggest that's probably.
Are they going to be looking at the fact that Cascade's right next door, the whole Peta Park area
Yes.
and those numbers?
Yes, that was part of why we looked beyond your community to say, what areas also need service nearby that would benefit from your getting the fiber connection to the highway?
What did you find next door?
That some of those communities are not well served.
So Cascade is hurting right now to
I
meet
don't-
the standard?
We have to defer to Retta. Do you know that, or do you recall you looked at Patrick? Did you look at that? I think.
Well, sorry, I don't know the area very well. There are a few. Cascade is just what, south, a little southeast.
Yeah, it's right next door to us.
It's actually really similarly positioned. I think the earlier map, it's not at the scale. I don't have a perfect map that shows it. Oh, okay. Yeah, there are actually a couple hundred locations that don't that aren't able to avail themselves of that 100 by 20 kind of standard service. So, you know, I'm not aware of any grant money being spent there yet. But I don't, it didn't sound like you all would be able to benefit from that kind of as like a piggyback. We keep using that word, but you know, that you would benefit from that because of the way that the fiber line is run, as I understand it.
And Joe, this is Becky. Just a quick clarification, just a point of discussion. The way that I understand getting fiber off the highway and what it takes to do that is oftentimes there's an anchor institution or an organization that needs that level of service that is willing to foot the bill to get it that next step. And then as it expands from there, it becomes more affordable.
You bring up a really interesting point, Becky, and we realized this very late in the game. So you probably saw our email out to Comcast today to try to understand. So Comcast has made an offer to bring high-speed service to City Hall. And the numbers they gave was about $50,000 for construction, but they only wanted the city to pick up about $5 or $6 grand of that. I'm doing this off the top of my head. But then the monthly charge was pretty high. It was over $1,000 per month. What we sent a note back to them to try to get clarification on was are they talking that this would be fiber? We believe it's fiber, but we want them to tell us that it's going to be fiber and not some sort of conditioned line instead. And secondly, if they were to make that run, could it be piggybacked or utilized for other portions of the community, which would be a big benefit? And so while that, $5,000-$6,000 price tag and the monthly cost seems high, there may be an additional benefit to do that for the rest of the community. And I think we need to pursue that. Does that help or does that confuse things, Becky?
That helps quite a bit. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, FYI, the monthly cost was like $1,400 a month. And that would give us 1 gig up, 1 gig down here at Town Hall.
At the town hall. Okay.
Yeah.
It does also, though, help you address community needs. So one of the reasons that the BEAD money is out there is that during COVID, we learned that so many people didn't have internet access, especially when it came to schools and such. And so what happened is folks all over the country were driving to library parking lots and sitting in the parking lot for some portion of the day, right? And connecting to the library's internet and doing their homework in the car. Well, that was not seen as tenable in the long run. So part of these monies are to support that idea. If you looked at that from your town hall perspective or one of your other community buildings, which I know are limited, you could then have that sort of service there available in the case of emergencies or people not having the performance they needed.
I want to add to that there is basically, if we took 2-mile circle outside of town and look at the fiber services, there is services by TDS Telecom and Vero Broadband. I have contacted both of those and asked about plans to expand to Green Mountain Falls, and none of them had any plans to do that. But that could change, right? I mean, they could change strategy based on anything. But basically, when I contact them, it looks like it's not on their radar for the time being.
Are there any negotiable deals that could be made with some of these companies that could place infrastructure here for?
That's what we had a meeting with. Well,
Stratus IQ, yeah.
It was, Stratus IQ.
So something that we wouldn't get whacked like $1,400 a month.
Well, no,
We have
it's 1 point,
infrastructure.
that they wanted about 1.2 million, to come in. So yeah, that right now we're not really in the price part. So, since this was information only and we've been going quite a while on this item, there's no action associated with it. I'm going to suggest that we kind of move on.
Definitely would like to extend a huge thank you to Joe and Retta and Patrick and the team for working us through this project.
Yes, thank you very much.
And we
Appreciate it.
thank you for having us and getting to know your community. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And with that, we'll move on to item 6. Edward?
Just a quick comment. We may want to talk to Chief Murphy and see if there's some money through Office of Emergency Management. They can dedicate that as a hub of some sort. There might be a way to get in that way.
Yeah, I think we're both actually identified, them and this building.
Mhm.
And that, the $1,400 a month, that's hard to swallow. But yeah, if we could work a deal with both Town Hall and the fire station.
I'm just thinking that might be an avenue to get fiber into town through the Office of Emergency Management to the firehouse, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about like a obsolescence of 40 years, if we invest in something like that,
I think it's
might
been,
only get more expensive.
I think it's sort of been obvious since that facility was built that it needs to have that kind of support.
Mm.
I'm making notes here.
Yeah, it's only going to get more expensive for something like that. Deals will change.
So we're ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and move on now to item 6E as in Edward, and that's our resolution number 2024-03. Local disaster emergency declaration in the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado due to the extreme winter storm and snowfall, and let Becky kind of brief on that.
Yeah, so this is came up, Teller County did go ahead and put together an emergency disaster declaration. El Paso County was working on one and ended up standing theirs down. A majority of El Paso County didn't experience the snowfall or the conditions that we experienced here. If they would have, we would have been able to piggyback under them just like we did with the storm in June of last year. But because of that, piggybacking under Teller County's only helps us to accomplish a very small portion of the town. We did put in a considerable amount of overtime this last weekend, as Mayor Dixon discussed earlier. The concern that we have right now is that as snow melts, it's going to be some considerable runoff. And if we need to respond to that with additional resources, this gives us the ability to do so, and hopefully recuperate some of those expenses through either being positioned for some DOLA funding or doing another FEMA project, depending upon the severity. So this is preemptive right now. We do budget for overtime in our budget each year, but another couple of storms and we could easily exhaust that for the entire year.
Trustees, any questions, comments? If
Sounds like a
not,
good
I'd
idea.
What? Go ahead.
It sounds like a good idea to be prepared.
Oh, yeah, and Becky's discussions with the regional emergency office, the OEM folks, they did suggest you go ahead and we go ahead and do this. It poises us to potentially get funding if we do have some damages. So if there's no other questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion. I will not read the whole thing. I'll just read the title after the vote.
A motion to approve resolution number 2024-03. Local disaster emergency declaration in the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado due to extreme winter storm and snowfall.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve resolution number 2024-03. The title's already been read. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And we'll move on to item 7, discussion items. Board, do we have any discussion items? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 8, correspondence. Do we have any?
No formal correspondence. Did receive quite a bit of feedback from the citizens, letting us know where we needed to touch up additional roads, and lots of kudos this week so far and over the weekend. So
Okay, if there's no other correspondence, we'll move on to our second public comment period. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to comment? We do have one.
Brandy Morales, 6970 Howard Street. Reference what y'all were talking about earlier with the internet. Does the BEADS program only cover internet speed, or does it also cover reliability? Because the concern that we have is the reliability is not there. And for a lot of us, if we don't have internet, we don't have phone service, which means we can't even access emergency services. I use both Comcast and T-Mobile. T-Mobile doesn't work at all. I'm in the middle of town. I'm not nook and a cranny or out of line of sight. T-Mobile doesn't work. Comcast is the only availability I have, and it has not been reliable. So just using my personal example, if there's other people that are also having this problem, that creates perhaps something we could delve back into with that program to see if it also addresses that. Thank you.
Would you like me to address?
Yes, please.
So unfortunately, the BEAD challenge funding that came out the way that it was really just to help communities determine whether or not they met the definition of being underserved. Underserved was the qualifying factor for that BEAD funding. Certainly, we do know that there are gaps in services that happen for a variety of reasons, whether it be power outages, issues with towers, et cetera, other portions of the infrastructure. But no BEAD funding available for to address those issues.
And there may
Great
be-
idea, though.
Yeah, there may be a couple other variables too that are affecting, like I have T-Mobile. I actually get excellent T-Mobile where I am, but I'm all the way up at the top of Honda, right? And Comcast, I never have any problems with it. So something may be happening in your immediate area, which
Yeah.
Comcast.
I would say, contact them Comcast directly. And I would say if residents have recurring issues, with reliability and Comcast is being unresponsive, let us know. We do have a contact that might be able to assist.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Just out of curiosity, are we tracking like stuff above ground, like in poles, or stuff that's underground with Comcast? I'm really not tracking where it comes into even my house.
So, we didn't really track the stuff
track
that they
that.
have. We assess this information through speed tests and, information that they're able to get over public domain. You know, we know and Comcast has been one of the better partners, utility partners that we've had, but we know from experience that sometimes they might not even know where their infrastructure exists. And
Okay.
we know this because of our good friends at 811. And when we do a dig and nothing shows up on the utilities and then we find it. So hopefully it'll continue to improve and you know, I think the utility companies are also preparing for knowing that their infrastructure is soon to become antiquated.
Yeah, if you have neighbors in your immediate area, like to the left and right of you, they're having the same problems. It may be just relegates that one.
I mean, it's just normal outages that
Yeah.
happen across, it's not just individual.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, any public commenters out on Zoom for our second comment section? Okay, I've got 8:20. Do we have any last minute items? Gone? We are adjourned.